All right, Lee Karaoke here with my weekly report. So, a couple of things before I dive into this weekly report. This is also going to include some lab work that I did. So there's 3 core tests that I believe everyone should absolutely be taking, right? At least every 6 months. The first one is definitely your A1C test or your glucose test, which tells you what your fasting glucose is at least within a 3-month range, right? The second one is definitely your lipid panel, and this is more of a measure for your cholesterol, right? Cholesterol. It tells you a little bit about how blood circulates within your vessels, right? If you're at risk for a heart attack, right? And things like that. And then the third one is definitely I call it the comprehensive metabolic panel, CMP, which is really all about hey, how's your liver performing, right? Your liver, your kidney, how are you able to get rid of waste, right? Within the body. Any waste, literally, how's your liver performing and how's your kidney performing? So my LDL was off. It's 219. Target is at least below 100. LDL, by the way, is the bad cholesterol. HDL is the good cholesterol. LDL is the cholesterol that actually clogs your veins, right? Your vessels. So the goal is to actually reduce it to 100. And I've been trying, working out. Actually, there's a possibility that's saying that I may be having FH, which is genetic, especially if your cholesterol is extremely high, your LDL. They say I may need to be tested for FH, which stands for familial hypercholesterolemia, right? Hypercholesterolemia. And all it is that, hey, there's a genetic mutation that's causing your system not to get rid of the LDL, the bad cholesterol, right? And so even with diet and exercise, because I've been pretty good at diet and exercise, I'm watching my diet, running at least 3 miles, 5K, 3.1 miles, 3.10 miles. At least I've started taking that up to, rather than 3 times a week, to at least daily 5 times a week, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And sometimes on the weekend. Because I'm starting to feel like it's not as difficult. I'm getting back to before this was during the pandemic. I was running 5K every day, and it was a breeze. I would do it and it would vary. Sometimes it would be I would do it on average, it was about 38 minutes. I would do a 5K in 38 minutes, which was pretty good, right? For me, at least, my standards. Some people could do it in less. My eventual goal is to do it in under 20, right? A sub 20. Sub 20, 5K and sub 20 will be fantastic. That means I'm doing it in 7 minutes or less a mile. But for now, I'm still, I'm in the 48, so I'm 10 minutes out, and the only way to really improve that is by running every day. So I'm getting to that pace. It's pace work, right? You don't just get up and start running, effectively or efficiently. You pace yourself up. You keep on doing it on a daily basis, and that's how you literally improve. Your cardiovascular endurance actually goes up. So it's something that I've been working on, but my cholesterol, it doesn't make sense. 219. And that's why the tests, and I went to Quest Diagnostics, and the tests were hey, you probably may have some kind of genetic mutation. But nevertheless, I'm going to try it again and then see hey, so you see the ratio, that's 284. That means my HDL is 45 to 219. That's pretty high, right? So that's something to definitely pay attention to. My hemoglobin, the A1C, right? That's the 3-month sugar or fasting sugar. It's supposed to be less than 7, right? It's supposed to be less than 7. Target is between 5.7. And I know, your genetic buildup, if your phenotype definitely plays a role. African Americans probably will have a high A1C than, and I know, this is controversial because, hey, who came up? Who was the ideal specimen to actually come up with these standards, right? Who was tested? But there's been this debate, and I'm not the one to be pro or anti these debates. At least with the range, I can kind of pace myself. But they say, hey, ideally, these numbers were actually set for like a white individual that that was tested, and those numbers may vary depending on your race, right? So I'm not for or against, and I'm not approving or disapproving. I try and keep politics out of this, race out of this. That's not my place. My place is really to have some kind of benchmark to go back and look at, hey, am I within range? Can I improve my fasting glucose, right? So definitely, because that's a huge, your blood sugar is a huge indicator of how your organs are working, like your liver. If you have more blood sugar, right, that means, hey, your some of your organs are not even performing optimally, right? So it's really, really important that you have some kind of range. Now, as far as hey, what race? Does it vary with race? Does it vary with phenotype? Your genetic buildup. It may not. I don't know. That's not my place. I'm just looking at the range. Am I within spec, right? Plus, minus, I'm sure definitely race will have some plus, minus variation added to your numbers, but that's not my place. My place is really just to look at, hey, am I within spec? This is off a spec, am I within a certain acceptable range? And most important, how do I feel, right? If I eat a meal, do I feel all messed up and tired and brain fog? That's what my true measure is, right? And then my sleep this week was definitely off. There's a lot of things that's happening in my life right now, it feels like there's a fire, there's a fire within a fire within a fire that they all, and these fires always come in threes, right? Or more. But I'm just dealing with these different fires, and that definitely affects my sleep cycle. So cholesterol, definitely we talked about that. LDL, non-HDL cholesterol. This is the bad cholesterol. Then the ratio target is to 5.0 HDL. So I'm within spec. It would be great if that was higher, but triglyceride, these are the fatty acids, the fat, literally I'm bringing it down. That's a good thing, so it's a combination. So we can't really, I think the way to really identify if I have familial hypercholesterolemia is by literally just having a genetic test, right? But other than that, I think just based on these numbers, it can be improved. My liver, my kidneys are all good, so the key thing here that I definitely need to look at, so my resting heart rate is good. Like I said, the key thing, just move, man. The minute you start moving, your resting heart rate is going to start going down. Your heart rate variation is going to go up. Remember, the resting heart rate, the ideal is to bring it down, and the heart rate variation is to take it up. Daily steps, more daily steps, definitely, and you can see the correlation. Sleep, definitely, this is critical. I definitely need to take care of that. And then VO2 max, I haven't run out. I've just been going to the gym simply because it's much faster. I haven't walked around or ran around, in the parks, and that's where you really get your VO2 max reading. So that's my numbers in a nutshell, right? It's and the reason I'm really just putting my being completely transparent is so that, hey, there's maybe someone who's I have or I don't have insurance, or and I'm feeling like I'm not in control of my health, and then things just sneak up on you, right? Things sneak up on you. To be honest, I'm feeling better than almost 10 years ago. Like, I'm feeling much, much better, as far as like my health wise, right? But if I didn't take these tests, right? And that's why, like, you can't just be dieting and exercising and then you're thinking like everything is great, because some things have no indicators. Like, they don't come like heart conditions, heart attacks, and you being at the risk. Some of those things you won't even know until it's too late, right? And that's why, like, really taking these tests at least every 6 months will be a huge indicator. Now you can look at, what is your lifestyle? What are you eating? Are you sleeping in time? Are you fasting? You combine those two, and now you'll get really, really great data as far as like where you are compared to if you only did one versus the other, right? So I would say those three key tests, and I'm putting together the healthvitalrecords.com. I believe that's, healthvitalrecords.com. That will be the name of, and I'll confirm that. Don't quote me, but that will be, I'm putting together a package like, hey, if you were actually starting today, right? If you were actually getting on that bandwagon of full control of your health, what are the key things you need to do? Where do you start? What are the tests to actually take? Where do you take these tests at least cheaply? And then if you absolutely need some kind of prescription, because like if it's genetic, more than likely your lifestyle design won't really take care of something that's a genetic condition. You may need some kind of intervention from pharma, right? You may need some statins to come in if it's genetic. And the only way to really confirm it's genetic, you have to take a genetic test, right? To really confirm, these bases or these, alanine, whatever, those bases, there's a little bit of a mutation. And so the proteins that are responsible for lowering your LDL are probably malfunctioning, right? Just a little, by the way, not to get too technical or whatever, I have a background in pharmaceutical science. I did go to college for that, and my background is also in chemistry. So I understand, I'm not a doctor, but I do have I did take anatomy and physiology. So I do understand some of the workings, the inner workings of how your body really works, right? I'm not the expert. I did do some kind of drug design, and seeing how pharma actually goes into designing and targeting receptors. So I have some knowledge of that, but I haven't been in the field for a long time. But I think it's time that I use my knowledge to actually take full control of my health, and I want to share it so that if you feel like you're helpless, you feel like, and now, by the way, all this advice is not to replace your medical doctor. Still get the counsel of a medical doctor. But if you really feel, and I think it's not about, should I replace my medical doctor? Like, I think holistically, you should be working with your medical doctor, right? I think it's not about binary, this or that. It's this and that, right? It's you taking the initiative and working with your doctor. I think that's where you'll get the best impact and best control of your health versus you thinking, I'm mega smart, I could do this on my own, right? Or I'm completely reliant on the doctor, right? So it's somewhere in between. And I think the best approach is where each person has agency. The doctor will not have as much agency in your health. Like, they care, definitely. Most of them do. They've taken the Hippocratic Oath, and most of them do really want to see you actually improve, and they want to see you actually take full agency of your health, right? That makes them happy because they feel like they're actually doing their life's work, right? A lot of them, right? I won't say all of them, but a lot of the doctors actually do have good intent, and they really want to see you actually improve, right? And so now, in addition to that, you should also take agency about your own health, right? And like I said, take these three tests. They'll give you a very quick overall picture of where you stand. That's the A1C test. And actually, to be honest, where I found this deal is like $70 for all three tests, right? $70, right? And very quickly, you get to know, hey, how's your blood sugar performing? How's your liver and your kidneys performing? And then most important, how's cholesterol? Because cholesterol is what blocks the pipes when there's circulation for blood, right? So that's my weekly report this week. I do have so I asked my AI to, hey, what are the things we could do? Because I'll probably need to go back and retest, right? And make sure that, hey, this number here, this 2, because this is the number that is a bit, these two definitely, these two are the ones that are really, really giving me a little bit of anxiety, my 219, LDL cholesterol, and my A1C, right? I can 100%, just watching what I'm eating. Sleep is really important, definitely keeping the stress at bay, definitely sleeping at least 6.5 hours. And then watching my weight, because all this is also a function of your weight, gradually, reducing weight so that, because again, the surface area to volume ratio, if your heart has to pump harder because you're heavier, right? Your weight is heavier, your organs are carrying all this fat, so now your heart has to work double as hard. So that will affect your blood sugar, that will affect your LDL. All these things are cumulative, right? All these things are cumulative. So the one thing I would say, a lot of the cholesterol and sugar, those are usually a function of weight, right? The minute you lose weight, things you have more energy, you feel like moving more, and that motion is what actually everything starts functioning. Because remember, our bodies were designed for motion. If there's one medication you can add to your repertoire, it's just move more, sleep more. Move, get your body really in motion, and then when you sleep, rest. So that cycle of motion and rest, and then of course watching what you eat, that will work miracles as far as your health. So I've rambled enough for today. Hopefully this gives you, so I have my 4-week plan, it's all laid out. I can customize, hey, once I put together this website, you can go in and then you can be able to customize, hey, just based on your numbers. You should be able to go in, and once you have your tests, go in, put in what your report is from Quest Diagnostics. I'm spilling the whole tea. I'll share with you everything, I'll definitely put it together in a report, in a step-by-step report, and then how to actually use your AI, because I don't want that liability, right? And again, I will put a huge caveat that I am not a medical doctor, and my advice is not to replace the advice of a doctor. This is supplemental information that you can use to start taking agency of your health status. That's it. That's my disclaimer, right? So, but there's good stuff here, right? There's definitely good stuff. So I have my improvement plan. I want to go through my improvement plan. So for the next 4 weeks, so it starts on, July 20th, today's July 20th. I have to start my regimen, and then go all the way to August the 17th. August the 17th is when I'll definitely redo my testing and see if there's an improvement in my blood sugar. I know it's 4 weeks is not long enough, at least for A1C, because A1C is it takes a 3-month reading, but at least I'll be able to do for my cholesterol and see if there's any change. Hopefully it should be trending down. Hopefully, if I'm following the plan. But that is the plan. That's my update for this week. I'll talk to you next week. Cheers. And I appreciate you. And I want the best for you. Cheers. Bye.